Hello everyone and welcome back to another weekly PwrOn video. This week we are going to feature the Card Gorr. I am Nick the Greek Geek, and with me I have Matt, aka Devilish Play / Devilish Plays, depending on what platform you're looking on. Devilish, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I've been really looking forward to this. So, yeah, it's my first PwrOn YouTube video.
And hopefully it won't be your last. So this week we are going to talk about Gorr the God Butcher. Gorr's text reads ongoing +2 power for each on reveal card in play. I've got his details and I'm going to bring up his tier stats here. I know you're one who always gets the card and always plays it almost first day. What was your impression of Gorr at the start and maybe now if you played with him a bit more?
So, straight away, my mind went to Mr. Negative and some of the original Mr. Negative. So, not so much the Taskmaster Sage thing really, with Wongs and everything else. I kind of looked at who I was playing in the meta, and there's a lot of Arisham still, and thought, it fits well into a deck where I can potentially, like the old null position, removing him there, mainly because in those Mr. Negative decks, it's an ongoing, so it can be hit by Mystique. Mystique can also hit various other cards in that deck anyway, so
Yeah.
there's synergy there straight away. But I was a bit unsure how or whether it would be any more consistent in that deck because realistically, unless you've got negative down on 3 or maybe 4 if you've got an extra turn, it's still a Mr. Negative deck. I enjoyed it, and there's a few clips later I think we'll have a look at, but I think it's a decent card, it's a decent stat stick, and I think if you're looking at just a single big card, big 6 cost drop in other decks, it's decent, but I think you kind of have to do the combos to really get the big payoffs, I suppose.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at the tier stats, he's fine,
Yeah.
lower than most of the other cards that we've gone over this month as well. But I think that's just because he's very limited in the decks that he works in. You know, B tier is not a bad card, but there were two stances this month. Either it was going to be Fenris as the card of the month or it was going to be Gorr. I was on the Fenris fence until I started playing Fenris, and then I was like, okay, maybe it's going to be Gorr. And Gorr has been fine, but I haven't found him crazy overpowered. I haven't found him impossible to defend against because generally if you're playing a negative deck, you know what you're getting. Like that's the thing,
Yeah.
is negative decks can be very telegraphed. And if you stay in on a negative deck after they've gotten negative down on potentially 3, you might be the crazy person. Or unless you have an Eliath to kill that last turn 6 play. It's fragile in a lot of ways. Mobius, I've seen a lot more Mobius in the last couple of days
Yeah.
than I think
Yeah.
we have in a while. And it's funny because it's tied in with Surtur decks coming back as big cards. And logically, this kind of can fit into a Surtur deck. There are some decks that have a decent number of on reveals, but I don't know. I haven't found him as oppressive as I thought I was going to. He's a good card, but it's another one of those things that it's like, is he good enough to justify your 5,000 or 6,000 tokens, considering the stuff that's coming up next month? I don't know if you've seen much of the data mines. There's Doom 2099, Penny Parker. Flash specifically has been raving about those two cards. And with this, you only get but so much in the way of resources. And I don't know if it's strong enough to justify. But then I remember when Anti-Venom came out, I did that video with Gregor, and initially it was just like, oh, I don't know about this card. And it found its home and it turned out to be a really powerful card. We'll bring up the Spotlight caches, and that's another one where it makes it a little bit sketchy because you've got Gorr as a Series 5, but the other two cards are Series 4 cards that have
Yeah.
been in Spotlight. Like, who would have thought Havoc would have been in as many Spotlights? And
Yeah. Exactly.
same with Legion. Like, Legion's had, I think, 5 or 6, 4, I don't remember, but it's been a lot. And the variants themselves, they're fine, but I know you're not a crazy variant hunter. You tend to be selective on the variants that you go for.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't get me as cards. Havoc doesn't see a lot of play. If I'm honest, there's a couple of decks he can work in. You're having to be very clever around energy cheating and stuff in those decks anyway to really get much out of Havoc. Legion is a great card. I've recently started playing Legion again in a couple of decks. He was in my tech deck that I took along to the PwrOn charity tournament, and there's some fun stuff you can do with Legion, and he's a little bit forgotten, so he's definitely worth a pickup. But as both a Series 4, it's kind of like, do you spend a key on potentially getting one of these, or do you just go and spend some tokens on it in the shop when it comes up on rotation? I think if you want one of those two cards bad enough, that's what you would do, and not necessarily pull for it. I certainly wouldn't suggest to anyone that is low on key numbers that Gorr is an absolute must. They must go for. Like you say, he's a fun card. He's decent in a few decks. I think the key thing there as well is you are very reliant on the meta with him. So you can, if you're not playing him in negative and you're playing him in something else, and you're only relying on your on reveal cards, the most he's getting to is maybe a 6-9, 6-11, and that's not great. You know, when you can play much bigger and cards that have different abilities and stuff on the final turn. And if he's your only turn 6 play, do you know what I mean? You're reliant on a 7-turn game, and I don't know, maybe Zola in him, which
like with Null. But I mean, at that point, why not just play Null?
Yeah, I think he's decent. If you can afford him, he's a bit of fun to play with. I think, like you said, with very similar to Anti-Venom, I think we'll probably find homes for him that none of us have really thought about yet. And at the moment, there is quite heavy counter. As you say, we've seen Mobius popping up a little bit more often because people are countering against the negative decks that are being played this week. I think in a few weeks' time, once that settles down a little bit, then I think we may see some other stuff emerge.
And I'm interested in seeing that. I find it funny in this list that Havoc, a card that works really well in negative, is also in with Legion, which is a great counter to people trying to do their turn 7 negative plays. Yeah. And Legion just says, no thanks. Absolutely. I mean, it's a choice, that's for sure. But let's move on to some gameplay. First up, we have Lufku. He's got the Anti-Venom build with Gorr.
Oh, rude.
And it's not a negative deck.
It is still fine.
But it's got Ravonna in there, who works really well. So if you've got Ravonna can work really well with Gorr.
So is he hidden? He's hidden. Must have hidden Gorr on turn 6. I'm guessing behind Dark Dimensions. A 7-turn game limbo there.
That's what I'm assuming, because he does have Ravonna down, so he could play that on 5.
Yeah, that is fine.
So Iron Man plus
this
Gorr, and that does
it. Got even
so cool. That gives the power back, although mid was not close at all, actually. The Shadow King kind of screwed them up because it just reset their Venom to nothing. But this is, man, Anti-Venom is really, really powerful when it comes to stuff like this.
Yeah, definitely. If you got that Luke Cage down on the board as well, and you know that whatever card you've zeroed is going to get the power back as well, then you know you're in for a treat.
Unless you've hit it with Shadow King, and that's one of those things that has changed that I don't know if it needed to. When it works for me, it's great. When it works against me, I hate the change more than anything else.
I still get confused, even though I know the change has happened. I still like, what's just happened there when it does happen against you. Yeah, absolutely.
I still can't believe they buffed him to 3 power as if he needed it. Like, no, the man does not need another power. The next game that Lufku's playing, he's using a different deck. It's a Wiccan speed deck with Gorr in it as well. It is the Surtur version as well. This is one that was very similar to what got me to Infinite, just swapping out one of the 6 costs with Gorr. And I mean, Arrow did not help them. It's almost a mirror match that they were playing.
It would have won. Yeah, even without the arrow, it would have won the lane. I think it's key there. So there's a card in there that's key. I think in Gorr decks as well, especially if you're trying to maximize your amount of on reveals, and that's Hawkeye there.
Yep.
Because generally, the card she's bringing out, apart from, I mean, in one case here, the Pim arrow is probably the only arrow that isn't on reveal, but the others are. Even if they end up on the other side, it does look like there was a few Hawkeyes being played in this game on both sides of the board, but that's surely going to juice the Gorr there as well. So.
That's the important thing to know, is that Gorr counts the on reveals on your side and on their side. So it's not just a single-sided situation. It is all the cards on the board. So he can get up to a decent amount of power. 15 power is pretty stellar. And also with him, like with Werewolf, if you played an on reveal on somewhere like Nowhere, it would still count towards his power.
It does.
So
yeah. He's reading the text, not the ability, isn't he? So if it's as long as the card's there and got the text, it's fine.
Exactly. That is something that is good to know going into playing him as well. And next up we have Doey, who I haven't had a chance to feature before, so it's nice to be able to see some of her games. So she's doing your more standard negative list. It's just a smart decision. I think it's a very good fit. It's just tough when everyone is
and taskmastered. Very nice. And Sage.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, that's a brutal final turn play.
Well, again, if you're playing against a negative player, why, when you see negative down and then Jane, why are you like, let's stay in? It's just silly. Why? Don't do that.
From the looks of the board above, I think she may have skipped turn 6 there, because you've got Eliath in the middle against the Wong, and potentially she's only played the Wong there on turn 6 on its own before the others come down turn 7. So maybe that was a slightly too early Eliath there. But
completely agreed. With negative, you have to really time that Eliath perfectly, because had they not Eliath and they had done it the last turn, she probably still wouldn't have priority and they could have killed everything. But hey,
that's the one thing as well I found. I mean, we may see later, but there was a couple of games I played where Gorr was Eliath, and there was a game I played where I was playing a Gorr into a lane, I think, and then planning to Zola it, and it got Red Guardianed and went from 19 power to minus, because he's already -1. -3.
Oof.
So Red Guardian is a big hit to Gorr. If he's the only card in a lane and you get hit with it, then yeah, that's what happens.
That's also the thing, is how often is that going to happen early enough to have him as a negative power? But it has. Like, I've had him pulled by Sakaar and had someone Red Guardian him, and I'm just like, well, okay, thanks then. I guess that's it. Or there's nothing worse than when Sakaar pulls your card and for them it's a Shang-Chi or something else that kills it, or an Enchantress, and you're just like, all right, game, I guess you just didn't like me today. Like,
what did I do? Want that one. Yeah.
Yep. Let's take a look at Doey's second video. Ooh, and she got an Agatha from Black Vortex too, which is never a bad thing.
Oh, you raked your whole yard?
Yeah, if you can...
Oh dear.
Gambit is always... Oh, wait.
What did Gambit
they didn't have any cards in their hand.
They didn't have any cards left.
That's it. I've also noticed that Gambit doesn't discard a card if there's no opponent cards on board as well. I had a situation to where I was planning on doing something. I think I was going to Grandmaster Gambit, and I was just trying to discard a card from my hand. And it did nothing because there were no cards.
Because there was nothing to destroy. Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, well, that's good to know. The weird thing is that you only know once you actually try it. But yeah, it's weird how popular discard has been, especially as of late. I'm interested in seeing if Scorn gets a nerf soon. I'm thinking she will.
I hope she doesn't, because I love discard at the moment. I love it. I got my Apocalypse up to 48 power in a game the other day. 48.
I remember when we were doing the Scorn videos, you were the one that had some insane plays. You got Scorn up to some crazy numbers, and she is a really good card. But discard is a little bit annoying right now. It is a little bit too prevalent. All right, let's take a look at Doey's last video.
No, Shadow King can't hurt me.
Yo, Doey, Shadow King can hurt you
a little bit.
It can hurt you with Mystique.
It can hurt me a lot on the right.
Okay, so we've got Wong and then a big ol' Ironheart. Oof.
Shang. Ouch.
Yeah, Shadow King doesn't do anything there.
Do anything.
All it does is it powers up Gorr too.
It took down. I mean, the Cassandra was there, but yeah, having missed, I think the opponent must have thought that it would do the same thing with Gorr, or the Mystique's Gorr. Nope.
I was playing a poor low CL player the other day, and they Shadow King my Morbius, and I'm like, that's not how that works. We've got this last guy up. I don't know about him. I don't know if he's worth watching, but I figure I might as well toss them in here as well.
Here we go. Watch the fun.
I think this is the first time I've had the person who's given me the videos on to talk about them. So you're going to have to talk us through your gameplay choices here.
Okay, so it's Mr. Negative, yeah, as I was saying at the start there. So again, as we've said, Mr. Negative down and Jane down. I was hoping to just juice the null a little bit there with the Zola onto either Cassandra or Jane, and then obviously then
Gorr
Iron Man had won that lane anyway, and then Gorr coming down, won it by a point. So that was a fun one. Enjoyed that one.
Really close.
If I hadn't have Zola'd that card,
Yeah.
that Zola counted obviously as an extra on reveal, which buffed
Yes.
Gorr by 2.
Yep.
If I hadn't have Zola'd the card, then I wouldn't have won. Or if I hadn't have hit the Cassandra either, because the Cassandra was bigger. I think Cassandra was bigger power than Jane. I forget. One of the two anyway. But yeah, either way, I knew I had to play the Zola first. Otherwise, Gorr wouldn't have been big enough.
But that's a 27 power Gorr, and you just barely won that right lane.
Yeah.
That's
in that one.
Nuts. All right, let's take a look at this guy's other video.
Okay, so again, similar situation. We just copied the Iron Man with Mystique. Give us some points there. So he's got 54 power in the left lane here.
But it's
54 power. But then Null's just come down. So we're now winning that lane. Gorr's coming down in that lane into Quantum Realm. So I'll have the points in there as well. And then Sage, just why not? We might as well. And we comfortably won that. Didn't win the middle. I was a bit annoyed, but I can't complain.
So disappointing. I guess you can't win every lane.
Can't complain. So yeah, it was a decent final turn, that one. He also had Jean Grey as well, which was an issue. I forget where. I think the limbo location may have given him an extra card. I forget what it was, but he had basically 2 blobs on there. And then obviously I was having to play into Jean Grey in the middle, which is why that's where Mr. Negative, Magic, etc., all went in the middle there. And didn't necessarily have to play Iron Man in there, but I had to play a 0 there to be able to then play the cards in other lanes. So that was the only way of me doing that.
I think that was a smart play. I think they were clearly giving up on right, but they thought, 54 power in limbo will be fine. And no, no, it's not. Not when you have a massive null and all of the other cards in there. But yeah, it looks like an Erisham deck, but Cassandra Nova doesn't look like she got an Erisham level. Oh, wait, because of Blob. Right, the 2 blobs. I'm assuming they grandmastered the Blob to clear the rest of their cards out. All right, and the next one, just a casual Iron Man on Onslaught Citadel.
Yeah, as you do. I think this might have been the one I was talking about. So you know when I said to you about Red Guardian?
Yeah.
So I played Gorr into this lane on his own. Is this the one? It was a different game. Might be the next one.
We're okay.
I'm sure I got a clip of it, but yeah, this was just to get Gorr popping off, obviously in different lanes as well. And again, the Zola buffs it by an extra couple. So again, winning by a point in the middle there. There is a key thing that you'll see here though, and it's the fact that there's a limbo in pretty much all of my games. So without that 7th turn, it struggles a little bit, but that's kind of negative anyway, because you don't have enough turns to get enough 0 cost cards, even if you play Jane. If you're only playing Jane on 5 and you've got 1 turn on 6, there's not enough turns in the game for it. You need to clear some of your hands to create space to then Jane on 6 and then play everything on 7.
You're 100% right. I think what you've done as well is you've packed this with enough cards to make sure that negative does pop off. You've got the Zabu, the Psylocke. You don't have the Ravonna in here, though. So that, I think, is the difference with a lot of the negative decks now.
That was, I believe, changed. The deck does have Ravonna now. Quite soon after this clip, I think I switched out Zabu for Ravonna to give myself that little bit more cost reduction.
And then everybody starts playing Mobius, and then you're like, well, I guess I'm not playing this deck anymore.
Yep.
That's the thing is, most of the decks that have been successful here have been negative ones. Maybe you didn't include the clip with Red Guardian.
I'll try and find it and I'll send it your way because it's hilarious.
Yes.
Not for me, but for the opponent seemed to enjoy it.
Well, it was like for your Fenris clip when you included the one with Destroyer, and even though you lost, you still got to flip the Destroyer over and remove everything from their board.
Oh, we didn't win the middle, but we won the other two.
Yeah. I think that's reasonable. You lose the middle, but you still end up with 79 power on the right.
Yeah, I just kind of, you know what, it was there because he was playing, obviously, Destroy. I was playing up against Destroy, and I knew I had a null, so I played that on the right-hand lane. But I thought if I play my Sage into the left-hand lane, and then he's got Shang, then I thought maybe I win with Sage in the middle here. I needed basically to double up my null, which I did with the Mystique anyway, but it was
Yeah.
more just to kind of be careful, thinking if I get shanged in a lane, I mean, if I get shanged in that left-hand lane this final turn, then it's over anyway.
Did you use Mystique for
Did I use
Gorr or
Mystique for that? Did I
null?
use Mystique? I can't remember
Hold on.
now. Is it Gorr?
We can.
If you got it, you got it there, haven't you?
Yeah, I do. Okay, let's watch it
I-
back. So, oh, you copied your Gorr.
I copied the Gorr. Oh, okay. That wasn't what I was intending to do. That's a mistake on my part.
Order matters. I tell you, order is
I
very,
thought
very
I'd done it.
valuable.
I thought I'd played Gorr, then Null, then Mystique to copy the Null, and expecting to be shanged into Shuri's lab,
Right.
thinking he's got, because some destroy
Yeah.
decks play
Uh-huh.
Shang
The
to
jerky
buff their
ones.
own Null up, and that's kind of where I was. That's where my mindset had gone. But hey,
Either way, hey, still a
we
win.
were fine.
Yep,
I'll take
still
it.
fine. If he hadn't Zola'd the Venom, you would have won the middle. If he had shanged you left, you would have won both. It would have been an easy win. But against a destroy gamer where you've got a almost 40 power Venom in 2 lanes, and yet they still can't take it because of negative. And this one you didn't have a turn 7 either. You just got lucky with what you pulled out. Is that Shuri in your deck?
We got a copy of their Shuri.
The
They were
Nimrod.
Nimrod. I'm guessing they just didn't draw Nimrod because, you know, otherwise you would be Shuriing into Shuri's lab and then playing Nimrod and killing it all. That didn't happen. So thank God they didn't draw it.
Well, had they, and had you actually done the order properly, you still would have won because
I would have won.
Yeah.
all the destroy going on.
Can you imagine, though, if that had been the play and then you had misplayed that? I think it would have been frustrating. This would not have been the same
brutal.
joy as this game.
No.
But at the end of the day, as long as you win, that is what matters. But there's Gorr. I think it's going to have more application later. It's nice that you can reduce the cost with stuff like Ravonna. That does give him a little bit of flexibility where you can Zola him earlier. But like you said, you run into that same situation like with Venom. If you don't have priority, they can just Red Guardian you before you're able to Zola him out of the way, and it's very fragile. It's not always going to be the only card you need to play on turn 6 to win. I still think it's a good card, and I think it's going to find home and find some really interesting decks as time goes on, but I don't think it's there yet. And I figure he will come back into spotlights. We don't know at this point, like with most cards, we don't know what the spotlights are going to look like in a couple of months. So he might not be back for, 2 months. I hope he is sooner, and I hope there's a little bit more application for him. What would you recommend as far as who should get this card and who shouldn't?
So if you're like me and you like playing combos and you can afford it, then I think it's worthwhile giving it a chance to see if you can maybe key or even token it if you've got an abundance of tokens. But if you are limited on resource, I think you should not get him right now. Hold off. He'll be back again at some point in another cache. It seems that they've been releasing multiple Gorr variants, so it wouldn't surprise me if they've got a few in the can ready for spotlight caches down the line anyway, whenever we do see him come back. So I don't think he's a necessary purchase. And as we said at the start, there's some good cards coming out in the next season when we get into the Marvel Rivals crossover that the game's got planned and the Chronoverse or whatever they're calling it. I think that's going to be some pretty exciting stuff. And December's always a fun month in Snap, so looking forward to it.
And what I'll do is all the decks that you've seen here today I will include down below, and like with last week, I'll include what's the top 5 untapped decks that are available. So I will include images of those and the links to those in the description below. Devilish, thank you very much for joining me today. I know it's late, I know you were limited on your time, but I very much appreciate you being able to fit me in, and that sounded bad. Anyway, thank you very much.
Anytime, my friend, anytime.
All right. Everyone, we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us for another PwrOn Weekly Card release video. Take care.
Peace out.